Stop scrolling and listen very carefully. What you are about to hear is not meant to be shared, not because it is dangerous, but because it is delicate. This message is meant for you, and only you. The universe does not speak loudly. It speaks precisely. And if you found this message, it means your inner world is already changing, even if your outer life hasn't caught up yet. Right now, take a slow breath, because the first thing the universe wants you to know is this: you are not late. You are not behind. You are not failing. You are exactly where you need to be. You've been holding something inside your heart, a feeling you don't talk about, a hope you don't fully explain, a tiredness you hide well. The universe sees that. You've smiled in places where you wanted to rest. You've stayed quiet when you wanted to speak. You've kept going when stopping felt easier. And that matters more than you realize. Here is why you must not tell this to anyone. Not everyone understands your timing. Not everyone respects your process. Not everyone can hold your truth without changing it. Some people listen only to respond. Some listen only to compare. Some listen only to doubt. This message is for your alignment, not for discussion. The universe says, protect what is growing, because what is growing in you right now is still fragile, still forming, still becoming real. You don't announce seeds. You nurture them. Lately, you may have felt a strange mix of emotions. Calm one moment, heavy the next, hopeful then uncertain. That's not confusion. That's transition. When old versions of you start dissolving, and new versions haven't fully arrived yet. The space in between feels uncomfortable, but that space is sacred. The universe is slowly removing the need to explain yourself, to prove yourself, to seek validation. You are learning to trust yourself quietly. There is something important happening behind the scenes, not externally, internally. Your priorities are shifting. What used to excite you no longer does. What used to drain you feels unnecessary now. That is growth, and growth often happens silently. The universe says, you don't need to rush. You don't need to force. You don't need to convince anyone. What is meant for you will recognize you without effort. Right now, your only responsibility is to stay honest with yourself. Notice what brings you peace. Notice what creates tension. Notice what feels light and what feels heavy. Your body already knows what your mind is still processing. And this is why you must keep this message to yourself. Because once you speak something out loud, it invites opinions, and opinions can interrupt clarity. This phase of your life requires privacy, not secrecy, stillness, not isolation, awareness, not fear. You are not hiding. You are honoring your process. The universe is not asking you to change overnight. It is asking you to listen deeply. There will be moments very soon when things start to make sense, when small confirmations appear, when subtle shifts feel undeniable. But they won't come through noise. They will come through calm. And before I continue, before I explain what this message is preparing you for, and why this moment matters more than you think, I want you to pause and feel something. If this message feels gentle, if it feels familiar, if it feels like it's speaking to a part of you that doesn't usually feel seen, then stay, because part 2 will reveal what the universe is quietly aligning for you, and why silence right now is actually your strength. Don't rush. Don't scroll. This message is unfolding for a reason. Stay with me, not because this is dramatic, but because this is delicate. What the universe is doing right now works best in quiet. There is a reason you felt drawn to pull back, a reason you've spoken less, a reason you've observed more than you've explained. That is not withdrawal. That is refinement. The universe says, silence is not emptiness. Silence is alignment. When things begin to align, the noise starts to fade. You stop reacting. You start responding. You stop chasing. You start attracting. And this shift can feel unfamiliar. You may notice that conversations feel different, that certain people no longer understand you, that you don't feel the same urge to share every detail of your life. This is not distance. This is discernment. The universe is teaching you where your energy truly belongs. Right now, something is being rearranged in your favor. But rearrangement looks like disruption before it looks like progress. That's why you may feel restless. That's why you may feel reflective. That's why your intuition feels louder than usual. You are being guided inward before things move outward. The universe says, protect your inner clarity, because clarity is fragile. When exposed too early, you don't owe anyone updates. You don't owe anyone explanations. You don't owe anyone access. What is meant for you does not need to be announced. To arrive, some things must grow in privacy before they can stand in public. You may be tempted to speak, just to feel understood, but not everyone can understand what hasn't fully formed yet, and misunderstanding can slow momentum. This is why the universe asks you to pause, to listen, to observe patterns. Notice who brings calm into your space. Notice who brings tension. Notice what thoughts repeat and which ones quietly leave. Your awareness is sharpening. This phase is teaching you how to trust yourself without external confirmation. And that is powerful. The universe says, when you stop seeking permission, you step into authority. Authority over your choices. Authority over your boundaries. Authority over your direction. This doesn't mean you isolate. It means you become intentional. Intentional with your time. Intentional with your words. Intentional with your energy. Because something meaningful is approaching. Not loud, not rushed, but steady. And steadiness requires preparation. Soon, you will feel a subtle sense of certainty. Not excitement, not anxiety, but knowing. That is alignment. And when that feeling arrives, honor it. You don't need to rush into action. You don't need to tell anyone. You don't need to justify it. Let clarity settle. Before I continue, before I explain what this alignment is leading toward, and what you must do when signs begin to appear, I want you to check in with yourself. If this message feels calm instead of intense, if it feels grounding instead of overwhelming, if it feels like confirmation rather than pressure, then stay, because part 3 will reveal what changes once alignment begins, and how to move forward without disrupting what's unfolding. Don't scroll. This message is still working. Stay present. This part matters more than you think. Once alignment begins, life doesn't suddenly become loud or dramatic. It becomes clear, and clarity can feel strained when you've lived in uncertainty for a long time. The universe says, do not confuse calm with stagnation. Just because things feel quieter doesn't mean nothing is happening. It means things are stabilizing. You may notice that your reactions are changing. Things that once triggered you no longer hold the same power. Situations that once demanded answers now feel less urgent. That's not avoidance. That's maturity. The universe is teaching you how to move without forcing. Right now, you are being guided to observe more than you act, to listen more than you speak, to trust what feels steady instead of what feels intense. Intensity can be misleading. Calm is rarely wrong. This is why you've been feeling selective. Selective with conversations, selective with plans, selective with where you place your attention. Your energy is becoming precise. The universe says, when energy becomes precise, manifestation becomes natural. You are no longer chasing outcomes. You are aligning with direction. And direction doesn't need urgency. It needs consistency. Soon, you may feel an internal nudge. Not a push, not pressure, just a quiet knowing. That is your cue. When that moment comes, move gently. You don't need to announce it. You don't need permission. You don't need reassurance. You already know. This phase of your life is not about proving anything. It's about honoring what feels true. You've outgrown the need to explain yourself. You've outgrown the urge to convince. You've outgrown the habit of overthinking. And that's a sign of alignment. The universe says, what is meant for you will meet you halfway. You don't need to chase it. You don't need to force it. You don't need to fear missing it. When the timing is right, effort feels lighter. Pay attention to what feels easeful. Pay attention to what flows. Pay attention to what doesn't require justification. Those are your signals. Right now, the most important thing you can do is remain honest with yourself. If something feels off, pause. If something feels right, trust it. This is not the season for rushing. This is the season for responding. And before I share the final message, before I explain what happens, when alignment fully settles, I want you to reflect quietly. If this message feels steady instead of emotional, if it feels grounding instead of overwhelming, if it feels like something you needed, without knowing why, then you are exactly where you need to be. Part 4 will bring closure to this message and give you one final instruction. Something simple, but powerful enough to protect everything that's unfolding. Stay here. The message is almost complete. This is the final part. And this part is quiet, not because it is small, but because it is complete. The universe speaks now without urgency and says, you do not need to rush. What is aligning for you will not pass you by. At this stage, your only task is presence. Be where you are. Feel what you feel. Notice without judging. You've spent a long time trying to understand everything, trying to prepare for every outcome, trying to protect yourself from disappointment. That phase is ending. The universe is not asking you to control what happens next. It is asking you to allow it. Allowance is trust without tension. You may notice a subtle shift after this. Not excitement, not fear, but a sense of inner steadiness. That is your confirmation. The universe says, when the need to explain disappears, alignment has arrived. From this moment forward, choose simplicity. If something requires you to betray your peace, pause. If something feels natural, let it unfold. You don't need to share your plans. You don't need to announce changes. You don't need to justify your silence. Privacy is not hiding. It is honoring what matters. What is meant for you will not require defense. And now, this is the final instruction. Do less. Listen more. Trust quietly. Let actions replace words. Let consistency replace urgency. Let peace replace pressure. The universe is not testing you anymore. It is responding to you. Before this message ends, I want you to anchor this moment. If you felt calm while listening, if you felt understood without being told what to do, if this message felt like reassurance, not persuasion, leave a comment from your heart. Not a word of belief, not a promise, just one honest word that describes how you feel right now. No explanations, no stories, just one word. This message is complete, and what unfolds next does not need to be spoken, only lived.